For more on this, we're joined by political analyst Professor Susan Booysen. A very good evening to you, Professor Booysen. Thank you so much for your time. The ANC has been rather indecisive about whether Zuma is still a member of the party or not, essentially leaving the ball in his court, because we know the party Secretary General Fikile Mbalula has said that Zuma is no longer a member of the ANC, although the party had not officially expelled him. And then he also said Zuma didn't want to resign from the party because he wanted to be expelled so he can play victim in the public domain. Rather undecided. What's to be made of such a debacle?
Yes, indeed, Mboz. The ANC has been left between such a rock and a very hard place on this issue, because on the one hand, once they had suspended Zuma in January this year, it was inevitable that they had to see through this process, that they could no longer simply argue that he has taken himself out of the party. And so this moment had to come, but it took a long time. It took so many months, almost 8 months since the time that MK party was formed, and around 4 months since Zuma stepped up and took the leadership, obviously de facto leadership of the MK party. So it's taken a very long time. It should have happened much faster. From the kind of wording that we see in the ANC statement today, it's very clear that they try to project themselves as a decisive, organized, fair, accountable, transparent, all of these things kind of party, and that it is an open process in which Zuma will be given a fair hearing. But we simultaneously know, and that's where oxygen has been given to the Zuma platform, and in under a month before the election, we know from typical Zuma repertoires that he will in all likelihood manage to exploit the situation, get a lot of publicity out of it. We've already heard that MK party people will be mobilizing outside Lutulia House where the hearing will be held. And we can imagine that MK party and Jacob Zuma will do their best to get a very good publicity run out of this.
You say that this is something that should have happened faster. What do you imagine were some of the factors that the ANC had to consider, especially in a year of elections, and of course a lot of other factors that had to be thought of and scrutinized before some sense of decisiveness is made?
Yes, indeed. I think they basically did not quite know how to handle this thing of a former president who proclaims that he is still a member of the ANC and will never not be a member of the ANC, and yet is initiating and leading another party. So I think that really caught the ANC off guard. It is an unprecedented type of situation, even by outrageous international standards. And so they had to negotiate a way through this. I think the case is pretty obvious, the type of charges that they are bringing against former President Zuma. And so one cannot imagine that it would have taken a lot of information, a lot of investigation, a lot of pulling together a particular case, because in terms of these two sections of the ANC constitution, which is very rich in detail on how disciplinary proceedings are to be handled. But in terms of the two particular articles, it's absolutely clear cut that Zuma, yes, associating with another party, standing against the ANC and candidates in the ANC that are endorsed by the ANC, that type of wording in the appendix in the ANC constitution are pretty clear cut. So I cannot imagine that they could not have seen the clear case that they had in there.
Of course, there's also still the matter of the High Court in Durban having criticized the ANC's failure to timelessly oppose the registration of the MK party. I mean, we heard Mbalula saying that this is not a personal matter, but about the protection of the brand Umkhonto weSizwe. What sort of position does that now put into the fore, because it also speaks to a delayed response and really just pointing to the issues that need to be dealt with before something decisive can come from the ANC.
Yes, indeed. That is a further corroboration in a way that the ANC really did not know how to handle it. And once they decided how to handle it, it was already pretty late in the day. And that case of vacillation really is hurting the ANC and is likely to continue hurting the ANC. And the spate of court cases largely going in favor of Zuma and the MK party, that has really been giving additional oxygen to his case as well. We know that the one case is still out on appeal, where the Electoral Court may or may not win that on their appeal against whether Zuma is entitled to stand as candidate in this election, and that one is being awaited with bated breath, because it can really make a big difference to this semi-election campaign around the eligibility and entitlement to symbols, eligibility to stand or not. So many of these issues remain so uncertain, so close to the election.
Yeah, this dramatic comeback, I mean, of course, former President Jacob Zuma shaking up politics before this month's elections take place. We also saw heavyweights like former President Thabo Mbeki coming to the forefront, campaigning for the ANC. A change of tune. Could this have influenced his change of tune and now coming back to really do some work ahead of elections?
I certainly think the ANC realizes, and all its former presidents do realize, and former President Mbeki included, that these are crunch times for the ANC, that the ANC is on the verge of possibly losing its outright majority in the forthcoming elections. And now is really the time to put past grudges behind them. And for people like President Mbeki, former President Mbeki, it's really an opportunity, I believe, that he has craved for a very long time, to be asked to step up and actually being given the platform to make his own case. We can't forget about it, that he was asked it by Zuma. And this is now an ideal situation for him to come and try to set that record straight. And in this battle of former presidents, we also have seen already how Zuma has stepped up that battle and reminded or argued the case that President Ramaphosa is not the president of the ANC of Luthuli or Mandela or Tambo, really rubbing that in, that he associates with other presidents. So in some ways, this is really the battle of the presidents.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that very thorough breakdown, Professor Susan Booysen, talking to us there about the crunch times of former presidents, of course, taking to the forefront, but also elections around the corner and a disciplinary hearing against former President Jacob Zuma with the ANC set to take place next week.